All right, Cowboy Nation, as we begin to talk about this Dallas Cowboys team, first and foremost, before we do anything, we clinch. We clinch. Meaning that everything that you guys talked about before the season, just shove it away. We are in the playoff, regardless. That's what you play for. That's what you prepare yourself for in the off season, as well as in the preseason, and as well as the regular season to get to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm talking playoffs. So you position your team to get to the playoffs. Now I come here to tell you guys, we are in the playoffs. Now we got these last 3 games, and it's about getting rhythm. It's about getting continuity, and it's also establishing your presence on the defense. And I believe, Cowboy Nation, the defense established themselves so far. Now, as far as the offense, I got to tell you guys, listening in to Mike McCarthy brought light to what I've been saying in the last few days. They're hiding something. The experimentation for the nation is out there. So let's listen to 105.3 The Fan, Mike McCarthy, and we'll break down all of those things right now. Let's go.
Season, number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, number 1 total offense in the NFL. Over the last 6-7 weeks, some offensive struggles, particularly in the red zone. When you look at how you want this offense to look, especially over the final 3 games, where do you see the biggest improvement as far as how you guys can handle red zone opportunities and be able to capitalize on those better going forward?
Well, I think like anything, the starting point really offensively is always ball distribution. You really want to get the ball, distributed throughout your perimeter players. That's the focus each and every week. We have a goal, how many times we want the ball distributed, and I'm talking about number of rushes versus completions. And you just take that through the situations. And I just think like anything, when you're seeing more, just soft coverage and so forth, just the patience and that you have to have, those completions. Because, I think like anything, you have a philosophy in every situation. And, our red zone philosophy is touchdown or check down in particular, when we're talking about the passing game. So, it's always the little things, the details. They sometimes go, in phases. But, our ball distribution, particularly the last 2 weeks, has been right where we need it to be. But we just got to get the ball pushed up in the seams and maybe create a little more space. So for the opportunities with our perimeter guys. So because I think we've been about 10, 11 broken tackles the last 2 weeks, and you always want to be right at that or above that each week, because that's definitely part of the production of this offense.
Speaking of the distribution to your perimeter players, and obviously this team has noticed much more cover 2, much more 2 safety play as far as the second half of the season is concerned. Are there things that this offense can do better when it comes to beating cover 2, whether it be finding more explosive plays down the field to the perimeter players? What do you all feel like can be better as far as trying to beat cover 2, what you've seen much more during the second half of the year?
Now, 2 things I want to talk about. He talked about ball distribution, and he said that that's something that they really look for. Now, we just heard Kellen Moore interview. Basically what Amari Cooper said about Kellen Moore's interview, like when they set up the game plan and the distribution. If you got already installed distribution stats in your game plan, is not including Amari Cooper, not including Michael Gallup in your distribution, or whatever it may be, then it's time to really think, what are the Cowboys hiding?
Well, it's just like anything. You have your alignment assignment, the scheme, and then obviously the execution. We're definitely at the time of year, December is, execution's everything right now. So, there's, the plays that we've been running, the defenses we've been going against, there's really no surprises. There's always, variations and tilts and emphasis, particularly to matchups and so forth. So, and when and that's why it's always the details, and that's why December football is so fun and so challenging, because it really comes down to who's playing the better technique and the fundamentals and executing their particular schemes or the family of schemes that they live in. But cover 2 is, you have different types of cover 2, and that's something that obviously you go into each game knowing, whether it's traditional cover 2 or more of a Tampa cover two, how they run the Mike linebackers, so things like that. So we have the schemes that fit the challenge each coverage scheme. So that's something that I think our players do an excellent job and recognize that and play for it. But we just got to be a little tighter, more exact, and when we're attacking cover two and hit those voids and create the matchups and get the ball distributed. Like anything, it starts with protection and getting the ball out on time and get in a route running, being tied up to the time clock of the protection of the quarterback.
Listening in to what Mike McCarthy said, we have schemes to fit those challenges. Whether it's cover two or traditional cover two or Tampa cover two, it doesn't matter. We have schemes. So I'm quite sure that when they run this vanilla offense, that they're checking in and they're trying to work something out beyond of what we're thinking. Believe it or not, like Ripley's. But let's listen to more what they have to say.
You say execution, and by the way, I appreciate you saying that because a lot of people kind of gloss over that. I see what you're doing, Coach. I covered Tom Landry for 10 years, and you are going into your Tom Landry bag of tricks. I know he would do this in December, and he would do this on a lot of road games in particular. He would make sure they get their basics down on execution. And he said, if we got a good defense, we're going to ride that defense. And so for a lot of people who wonder if you're being too conservative, let's say on some play calling or some clock management, or even on, knowing that your offense can get chunk plays if they were executing properly, they don't, you've said it. I heard you say it in some of the press conferences. This is why we're doing it this way. Are you kind of basically going back to old school saying, let's get our basics down first before we go all out and do the things we were doing when we were rolling with six victories in a row?
Woo! Now they're gonna go over a lot of people's head. Some of us haven't watched Tom Landry's football, right? I only got a piece of it, but I come here to tell you guys, Tom Landry was a mastermind. Some of the things that we do as it relates to football concepts to this day is brought to you by Tom Landry, right? Let's just be real with it. The guy is just remarkable, right? There's no other coach in the history of Dallas Cowboys been such an impact like Tom Landry, right? Outside of Jimmy Johnson, Let's see what Coach got to say about this one.
Well, I think the biggest thing, in the game of football, it's really the same, and it's just really how you get to it. It's always about the basics, because especially in the biggest game of the year, it's going to come down to the fundamentals and the ability to, as a coaching staff, to put the players in big play opportunities in position, and obviously and they execute it. So so we're always working on that, and and I think as far as how you play, each game, every single time you line up and compete, every game is different. It takes on an identity, and there's strengths and weaknesses. There's an ebb and flow to each and every game, and those are the things that I think our guys do a really good job of paying attention to, and I think you're seeing our team really come together and hit the target for being a complementary football, because complementary football wins in playoff and championship football. That's just the facts. It's very difficult to win a championship when your team is tilted one way or the other, whether it's to your offense or to your defense. So I think our guys, especially you can see it in our locker room, the connectiveness that these guys have. They're a tight group. It's a group that's very high in work ethic. So, but our ability to continue to grow the complementary attitude and philosophy is going to be a big strength for us moving forward.
Yeah, that's a bold proclamation right there, Cowboy Nation, to look at this and say, all right, we on the road for 3 games and let's figure this out. Let's work on the basics. Let's work on the rudiments of football as it relates to the offensive side of the coin. Let this defense continue to hum. Let's see how much this defense can give us in the stretch. And that was one hell of a stretch, Cowboy Nation, regardless of how you look at it. 3 road games, but one can argue that some of this offense that we've been talking about as it relates to slumpage happened before these past 3 games, right? And we can go back and forth of talking about this player wasn't here, musical chairs, dare I say, with the offensive line. But this team It's a bold proclamation to say, hey, we were just working on the rudiments. But if anybody have a notion of how to win in late December or how to win when you get into the playoffs, would be a coach that been there before. And that's remarkable, Cowboy Nation, to exhibit this, because it's been many of moons where we had a chance or an opportunity to play this chess versus checkers. Normally we'll be fighting every tooth and nail to get into the playoffs, right? Now we're so ahead, and we feel like this team is such a better team than what we've seen before in the past. They're dogged. This team can literally make an impact when we get into those big games as it relates to playoff time. And speaking of playoff time, remember this, Cowboy Nation. In 2018, we had to catch fire and go on this run to get into the playoff, right? In 2016, Cowboy Nation, we was pretty much going into the situation saying, okay, young, hot team, not a lot of tape. Oh, the momentum was crazy, right? And it was such a young team on the offense, and the defense was just humming along, trying to keep up, right? But we made it and managed to get into the playoff. But before that time frame, it was 2014 when we was pretty much solid, but we still needed help on defense. So what I'm trying to say, that since 2014, not even 16, was the last time that we were solid going into the playoffs. If you collectively look into this situation, collectively speaking, I know that we can go back and forward about 2016, but those guys was just too green with a rookie Ezekiel Elliott and a rookie Dak Prescott. And you can't even name the players on the defensive side of the coin, because that's how the defense was. It wasn't what we see now. But let's listen to these guys again.
Yeah, and I think they talk about it all the time. Those guys talking about how it's like a real team, all sides of the ball. They all love each other. They all hang out together. They do a lot of different things together. And I noticed after the game, they talked about the big bet between Tank Lawrence and Dak Prescott, takeaways versus touchdowns. I thought that was nice added value. What do you think about the competition on that?
Love the competition. I mean, it's all about competing, and you're talking about two guys right there that are as competitive as anybody that I've ever worked with. So it's healthy. It's good. I think it's just you're seeing guys push each other, within the environment and the culture, particularly our locker room, and I think it's awesome.
Coach, when you look at this offense finally going forward, last couple things for you here, with Kellen Moore in respect to his being the offensive coordinator, how do you help him as a week-to-week basis goes on when it comes to game planning, but more importantly, when it seems like things may be struggling offensively? Are there things that you do extra to try and not only help not just him, but this entire offensive staff come up with, ideas and those kinds of things to be able to help each other as far as the offense is concerned?
I'm listening.
Well, I think like anything, you have a process, and it's it's something that you establish when you first get together as a coaching staff. And I think clearly from last year to this year, I think both staffs have. The continuity has definitely been heightened, and that comes in. We're no different than the players. We have to develop and get better as we go through it. So, and I think really when you go through spots, the biggest thing is the trust your process. Maybe have a little more conversation about the areas you need to emphasize, and and particularly with Kellen and I, most of our conversations are really about the play calling, the ebb and flow of the game, the anticipation of. How the guy you're competing against, Jack Del Rio this week, how do you think he's going to play? It's second time in 3 weeks, so it's more the particulars of how we want to call a game, go into the game, and because schematically, I think our whole staff and led by Kellen, I think they do an excellent job, as far as going through the menus of the things that we can use each and every week, and and being creative and diverse and staying on top of yourself, Scott, and all those things that go into a healthy game plan.
You ever get tempted, Coach? You won a Super Bowl calling your own plays. You ever get tempted to say, Kellen, this is what we need to do, man?
I think we're out of time, guys.
Well, that says everything, baby. Oh my! Look, y'all been sleeping on Coach Mike McCarthy. People fail to realize this one little thing. It's called growing pains. You can't escape it. You can't avoid it. You know, it take you 4 years to get out of high school. Let me repeat, it take you 4 years to get out of high school. This is Kellen Moore, third year as offensive coordinator. You know, some people can accelerate and get out quickly, but there are still things, even when you do that you still have to go through, and it's called maturity, right? You graduate from high school early, you go to college, there are things that you can't even participate. And you know what I'm talking about for those who've been to college land, right? Legally. Because you're too young. On top of that, it take you at least 4 years to get out of college, right? At least. Some people spend 6 or 7 years in college, but it take you at least 4 years to get out of that. And what people want from Kellen Moore is already 4 years. It don't work that way. It don't. And when we talk about temptations, right? We know that Mike McCarthy want to snatch that playbook. That's why he said, hey, look, we out of time. I can't make this stuff up. So these 3 games, who knows? Who knows? Like these last 4 or 5 games. And they might have, and this is just me conspiracy talking to you guys, sat Kellen Moore down and said, hey, you really want to be a head coach? We'll give you a shot right now to come up with the schemes, to come up with the schematics, to come up with the rudiments of the team to face against Jack Del Rio, or to face against such and such defense, or to face against such and such as it relates to the momentum swing of the offense. Whoa, it's getting too good, and I'm speaking too real for you guys. Well, some of you all, right? This team. Mike McCarthy, this team, in a pinch, be sure to do extra work just in case you have to take that playbook and be like, hey, let me call my plays that I know for sure that will work. It's no time for the experimentation for the nation. There's no time for holding back this time around because we got to win. It's been too long for the Cowboys of not lifting up that Lombardi trophy. But I trust you to make sure that you come up with a good game plan. Oh, excuse me. I trust you to come up with a great, like Tony the Tiger would say, great game plan, right? So don't mess this up. Cowboy Nation, don't mess this up. So that's my thoughts on everything, the rudiments, the fundamentals of everything, and they're hiding something. Maybe they're trying to give this young guy a good opportunity to showcase his ability. But what did it cost you? You know what I'm saying? It cost you some lack of stuff, right? And lo and behold, I'm not letting the players off the hook. Dak Prescott got to go through his progressions and read and trust what he have in the pocket and climb the pocket and go through his progressions and hit these wide receivers. The offensive line, for your mind, got to protect Dak Prescott and stand firm on their ground. Use the fundamentals. Use the skill set that God provided to them, what coaching elevated out of them to protect. The running backs got to hit their holes and run through there and trust what they see as well. The wide receivers, for crying out loud, got to catch the ball when it's in the proximity. I know Jerry Rice, he even cheated. Jerry Rice cheated, had them stickums. But he did say this one thing here. Shout out to Jerry Rice. Shout out to Valley, you know what I'm saying, from Mississippi, Mississippi Valley. You know how it goes. But, you know, as always, JSU, we stay true. We bleed that blue over there. But Jerry said, Rice said, if the ball touch your hand, you got to catch it, right? So bring forth that mentality, wide receivers. Let's continue to improve. We got 3 more games. Let's get into this thing the right way, the right groove of things. Post me your thoughts, post me your concerns down below. That's been my time. I really thank you all for yours. And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. Go Cowboys. And shout out to 105.3 The Fan. We out.